Today we are joined with the legend Prasad. Tell us about how you got into recruitment.
I just kind of stumbled into it. I was working in a gym, selling gym memberships.
Tell me like the start of your career in Michael Page, because obviously we know each other from Michael Page back in the day.
I mean, it was a shock. The culture the first time around is very salesy. KPIs at Robert Half are very different to Michael Page. But core hours at Robert Half was like, shut the f*** up. The environment there was between 9 and 12. It was loud. It was awesome.
What do you think is the hardest part of the job early days?
Going out and doing enough work. As a recruiter for me, I'm very instinctive. So if I pick up a lead, I'm going to chase it straight away. You were siloed at Michael Page into, you are north side only, doing temp. That was hard because when you pass a lead to somebody and they weren't as passionate about it, you would be like,
16 years in recruitment?
Mm-hmm.
Mate, that's a lot. So are you still on the phones?
Every day.
You're just always hammering it. Do you have any actual confessions? Anything that you look back on your career and go, that was a mistake?
Yeah, I mean, a few.
Let's get into it. Rav, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ed.
Good man. Well, Rav is the founder of Humanistics in Brisbane, but we know each other from way back when. So we might actually start, not with your first day at Michael Page, because we've heard that, but tell us about how you got into recruitment.
Well, mate, yeah, thanks for having me. I got into recruitment because I just kind of stumbled into it. You know, I was working in a gym, selling gym memberships for Fitness First, you know, and I applied for this job, just a random PRC ad, and I interviewed with Josh Rafter.
Oh, yeah.
And he kind of saw something in me, and mate, that was it.
Amazing.
Yeah, like 12 interviews later.
There were long interview processes in those days.
Days.
Tell me like the start of your career in Michael Page, because obviously we know each other from Michael Page back in the day. Yeah. But I'd love to hear it from like your perspective, what it was like joining a pretty established business coming from your background.
I mean, it was a shock, to be honest. I was used to gyms, right? So everyone was kind of just a bit, not as sharp. Yeah. And I walked into, I just remember being on the sales floor and walking in and seeing people like you with a full Windsor knot and a like perfectly fitting suit. Everyone's clean shaven.
They don't fit me anymore, by the way.
Right, yeah. Okay. I didn't want to say anything. But they just looked so sharp. You can hear people on the phone. They're all, especially you're standing up at your desk, you know, closing deals and stuff. And it's just very intimidating, especially if you did not own a good suit. That sucked. But it was a real eye-opener. Something that I was kind of really motivated when I came in, because I was like, whoa. Like, these people are professionals. They're on the phone. They're not just feet on the desk selling a gym membership. They're really closing deals, and they're talking a different language. So, big eye-opener, but a good one.
And how long were you, because did you do 2 stints at Michael Page?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, so tell me about the first stint, because I think we must have crossed over by about 4 or 5 years, maybe, I think. Tell us about the first stint, like the culture, and was it different going back the second time?
Oh, heaps different.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. The culture the first time around is, you know, pick up the phone, very salesy type culture, which, to be honest, I really preferred. I thought the training was great. It was really professional. And the standard of people that you would hire at Michael Page at that point was awesome. You know, like the conversations about PRCs were like, no, they haven't done this. They did not impress me saying this. They haven't done enough, or they're not competitive enough. So no. And it was like, oh, awesome. Yeah. And so that you knew when someone would start, the caliber of person you were getting was great. I remember when I left and went to Robert Half, again, that was a real step up from a sales culture perspective. The KPIs at Robert Half are very different to Michael Page. Robert Half's an 80%, I don't know if that's changed since when I was there, but they were an 80% contracting business. Okay. So that's what they did mainly, versus Page, which was, you know, more perm. Mm-hmm. So your KPIs there at Robert Half were like full on. Like we're talking, you know, 100 plus calls a week.
Connected calls.
Calls, yeah. They would have inside, outside model, where if you were running a temp desk, you would have someone on the outside just doing meetings. So their KPI was to do 20 client meetings a week, pick up jobs from those meetings, call you source the jobs and then connect with the client, and you go 50-50 on the margin.
So you do the BD, get the meeting set up. They attended the meetings and then came back and you filled it.
Well, they would do the BD, right? So the outside person was all BD, inside person was all candidates. It was manic, but it worked.
It sounds like a very well, obviously it's an American business, right? It sounds like a very American structure.
It's very American. Yeah.
Which side did you sit on? Because you were division manager there, is that right? Yeah. So as a division manager, do you look after both sides?
No. So they called it accounting temps, and then they had accounting and finance, which was the perm stuff. I did perm. I was so thankful for doing perm over there because that was like temp speed at Michael Page. So that was a real shock. Like they were awesome on the temp side, and I really learned a lot from that point in terms of wow, like at Michael Page, I think there was a lot of time to breathe over there from 9 to 12. Core hours, right? Yeah. We kind of loosely had core hours at Michael Page, but core hours at Robert Half was like, shut the fuck up.
Don't go to the toilet.
Yeah. Don't look at your phone. Just go.
Yeah. Okay.
And the environment there was between 9 and 12. It was loud and it was awesome.
That's good. That sounds like my very early days in recruitment. And I remember being at Page actually early days and Joss Godbold. Remember Joss? And I like Joss, really strong operator. Yeah. If people went on the phone, he'd walk around and physically dial the phone for them. It
happened to me so many times with Joss.
Made you get on the phone?
Yeah. He did. It was really scary because he used to walk around with that little Bluetooth thing.
He did, before Bluetooth was a thing.
Yeah.
I guess from a cultural perspective, so the difference between those two, and you've obviously worked at a few different companies. Tell me about the different cultures, like, that go deeper than just the day-to-day operational stuff. Like, how did it feel to be in a business like Page and Half? Because, I remember the early Page days, and respectfully, it felt like I loved it. It was just a vibe, right? And I've worked at other companies, didn't feel like that again. And so I'm just wondering how you felt doing these different companies post then.
I think the culture at Page was from what I felt, was you had to really earn your respect when you came in there. And that's not just through getting on the phone, but you had to be part of the culture. And what I mean by that is, you had to be a good bloke.
Is that why you used to linger around our desk all the time?
I just want to be in sales. Yeah. Being a good person, having good banter in the office, but knowing when to pick up the phone and start dialing, I think was really, really important there. And they really valued that. And I think people would notice that. They'd start coming over to you if you were doing well. They start talking to you about career progression and telling you what your career could look like in a couple of years, and then you'd start getting invited to like different lunches, and I kind of liked that because you sort of knew where you stood. A little bit different at Robert Half, for example. You could be shit at recruitment there, and you still get invited to stuff, and it wasn't like an atmosphere where you felt like you had to really prove yourself. Whereas Michael Page, everything was at a different standard. Yeah. It's not to say Robert Half didn't have standards; they were very high. But I think the culture was different in the way that Michael Page was. You knew where you stood at every.
There's a lot of focus on your internal brand perception.
That's right.
Yeah. So you obviously, when you first came to Page, you were doing temp straight away, right? And again, you stayed in that accounting and finance niche. Kind of, was that deliberate? Did you kind of landed there, and so you just decided that's where I am now?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I did pretty well in that space, and yeah, I just figured stay here, build yourself up in that market, become an expert, and this is a job that will get easier over time. Yeah. So that's kind of my thinking behind it. Still doing accounting and finance now. It's very different now. It's more transactional. There's less onus on human connection. The Brisbane market is different now too, because not everyone is from Brisbane. So you don't have that little network where, I know this guy from school, I can just call him and we'll get work on. There's a lot more people moving from overseas, but also Melbourne and Sydney to live in Brisbane. They don't have these connections, and so it's really about the right level of human connection, talking to your clients properly, taking the time to understand the business. But it is very transactional these days as well. So if you're not going out meeting clients or talking to people, then it's really hard.
What do you think is the hardest part of the job early days? That when you're in the early days of Page, that we don't really talk about and that we can talk about on here?
The hardest part for me, I think, is going out and doing enough work, because you were siloed at Michael Page into, you are north side only doing temp. And so it was really difficult when you got a lead from a candidate who was like on the south side, I've got to give this to Johnsy or, or someone. That was really, really hard, because I think as a recruiter for me, I'm very instinctive. So if I pick up a lead, I'm going to chase it straight away. That was hard, because when you pass a lead to somebody and they weren't as passionate about it, you'd be like,
I'll do it.
This is
I'll
going
do
to
it
waste.
then.
Yeah. Creating your own brand was really difficult, because you were so siloed into a market.
Do you remember your first placement?
Bradnam's Windows and Doors.
Right.
I remember it really clearly. Sean Cronin was just standing over me the whole time, telling me what to do. Probably would not have happened if he wasn't there. But it was awesome.
That's your early days. And now talk me through from your kind of transition from working in those big environments to doing this for yourself. Because you kind of started with Renegade Consulting, I believe. Talk me through that transition and that journey.
Renegade Consulting for me, or just going out on my own, was, me having a kid. That was just me not wanting to work the 12-hour days anymore. I think when you work in an agency and you get to manager level, and there's a lot of boring stuff that you do. You go to a meeting and you've got to spend an hour talking about the Christmas party, everyone's behavioural expectations. You and I never got in trouble for that.
No, never.
And then there's, talking about planning BD days, and, sometimes you'd have to go, kitchen etiquette, and it's really, like, you're just like, far out. When do I get a chance to bill? And I think having my son was like, okay, I have to go out and just do something that gives me the flexibility and, still pays me really well, so I can maintain my lifestyle. So that was really the reason I started Renegade. And I always thought to myself, maybe I'd go back to an agency, because I really enjoy the culture and just being around people. You get such a good buzz on the floor. But the weird thing about it is I've just loved being out on my own.
Let's talk about that, because we joked before this podcast, like some of the things we used to do early days, and we used to have this thing called the Page Challenge, where every month we do different events and see who could become the champion of all the different events, like go-karting. And I was obviously the champion two years in a row.
You were? Yes. Yeah.
But there's a culture you can create there with lots of people, and lots of people at the same phases of their career. How did you find that transition to being on your own, right? Because you were always a big culture guy. So that's something I was curious to understand.
I really miss that part. But again, if you think about that wasn't done by directors at Michael Page, right? That was done by guys like you and Dave, who started this thing, and then you got everyone in the office interested in it. And you guys were really the ones that started that stuff. So I took that, I guess, and I'm lucky that I've lived in Brisbane my whole life. I've got a good group of mates here. And so I just kind of do all that stuff with them now, We've got this challenge called the Greatest Athlete Challenge. And we do it every week. You nominate someone every week, and it's their challenge. So they pick the challenge. That's awesome. It's very much
like what
off the back of what we used to do.
Yeah.
I pick ping pong all the time.
Yeah, because you won that.
There's not a lot of other things I'm that good at. So,
because also you went from consultant to leadership in those big companies as well, so you started to see the difference there, and then you've gone out on your own, and then you've now launched, or maybe it's, how long has Humanistics?
2 years.
2 years. So, right. So talk to me a bit about that, and because that's not pure recruitment.
No. It's a decision I made. Renegade Consulting was going great. It was something that I thought, all right, well, I'll keep doing this forever if I have to. Making good placements, going on meetings, running my own ship was great. I knew Steve and James, two of my partners, for a while. So James actually used to work for me at Michael Page. We hired him as an associate consultant. He was terrible.
He was an associate consultant. You put associate next to anything, it's like you're not quite there yet.
Great bloke, great background, HR degree, always wanted to get into HR. Okay. So someone I got on with really, really well, and decided to partner up with later on in my career. His dad, Steve, he was a founder of like another HR consulting firm, and he'd built it up to sale, sold it, and was kind of looking for his next project. He's someone with a lot of experience, and then when I sort of met both of them, he was saying, well, I've always wanted to have recruitment in the next consulting business I do, because every time I go to a meeting, there's a recruitment need there. And so it's really important that we have that. And in particular, within HR or finance was sort of where he was thinking. So I thought about that, and I was like, oh yeah, this could work really well, because on my end, a lot of the business development I do, some businesses need that consulting on the HR side or on the executive side. So it married up really nicely.
So are you still on the phones? Because
every day.
You were always on the phones.
Every day.
Just always hammering it. Love it. So haven't lost the hunger there
no,
at all.
No, I love it. Yeah. I mean, you've got things like Lusher now as well, which are just like, oh, this is great. Yeah. You just pick up the phone to everyone now, and it's awesome. So yeah, I still love picking up the phone.
And was there kind of a significant moment from being in recruitment agencies to going, this is why I'm going to go out on my own? And then the second follow-up question to that is a moment from renegade to going, I want to do something that goes beyond pure recruitment.
The moment I knew I wanted to go out on my own was, I think, when I was at 6 Degrees. I was there to set up their accounting and finance team, and being honest, I was going through, marriage broke up, all that stuff. I was thinking, like, this just feels like an agency. I feel like I need to go do something by myself. So the thing that really pushed me to go out on my own was having a son, going through a few changes in my life, and saying, well, what's a better way that I can do this where I feel like I'm fully in control? That was the answer. And then doing reasonably well at Renegade and having my own business, I was pretty bored. Yeah. There were some days where I was just like doing it from my couch, just watching Ted Lasso in the background. and
Leadership 101.
Yeah, it was just pretty grim for a while. And so I just wanted some culture back. So when I spoke to James and Steve about it, we decided to do it properly. So we've got an office in Spring Hill now. The ping pong table's in there. The office is set up really well, and it's a great vibe. When we're all together in the office. I still work from home quite a bit, but it's a really good happy medium there too.
16 years in recruitment?
Mm-hmm.
Mate, that's a lot. That's how long I was in recruitment before I ultimately left it. I hear, when I was seeing you today, I was like, oh, I remember you from when we worked together, not who you are now. Yeah. So you had a really good career in recruitment. Like, what's some advice you'd give to somebody about who's maybe early on in their career, how to make sure they keep advancing, just something you'd give them? Like the advice I used to give you.
For me, I think people put a lot of onus, because you start, the best place to start, I think, in recruitment is at one of the big agencies, because the training is so good. But I think the mistake you can make in a big agency is you put too much onus on, well, I'm an associate consultant, I need to be a consultant because that makes a difference. And then I'll be a senior, and then I'll be a manager. And I feel like none of that really makes a difference in the grand scheme of things. What you need to be doing is just getting better at your own craft and improving your own skill. And if you're doing that, all that stuff's going to take care of itself. So yeah, I would say don't compare yourself to, what other people are doing.
It's very hard though. Like, we've obviously both been in those environments, and you always think the next role is when I want to be happy. Yeah. That's the role, and I feel like I've achieved. You never do. You're just constantly looking for something else.
Nothing changes until you're like director, right? You just have more meetings, but you're still expected to build.
You're just doing a slightly bigger job with more people, different regions, but it's the same.
Yeah, so that's probably the biggest thing, and I think you have to enjoy it. So if you're enjoying picking up the phone, getting meetings and billing, then all the other stuff doesn't really matter. Just enjoy that part. Get better at that part. Yeah. And you never know where your career's going to take you.
Tough markets don't stop great recruiters from building great agencies. Fear does. The recruiter who waits for the perfect conditions, the right economy, the calmer climate, is the recruiter who never actually builds anything. The market has always had cycles. It always will. That's never the point. The timing is never wrong. The preparation is. Our ex-recruiter partners didn't wait, and right now they're thriving month to month, year to year, hitting personal bests, running agencies they're proud of. Not because the market handed it to them, but because they built the right foundations from day one, the right systems, the right clients, something that doesn't crumble the moment things shift. With ex-recruiter by your side, you don't have to figure it out alone. We've helped over 100 recruiters make the leap, backed by an in-house team across finance, marketing, branding, and partner success, all from day one. The market isn't the reason to wait. It never was. Click the link below and let's have a chat.
I'm going to just throw this in there because Serge always says, be careful of asking this question because we don't, but do you have any kind of actual confessions? Like anything that you look back on your career and go, that was a mistake? I've got a few. I'm sure we all have it.
What sort of confessions are we talking about?
Well, you can maybe say a couple, then Serge can choose one and cut the other. But yeah, is there anything you look back on, maybe from a pure recruitment perspective, things that you do differently if you could redo aspects of your career?
Yeah, I mean, a few.
We'll come back to that if we need.
One of the biggest mistakes I made in my career was I would always expect things to happen for me when I knew I'd done my best. So I remember a while ago, we were in Page Personnel, and I was at that time, to get promoted to senior consultant, you had to build 100K over a rolling 3-month period, and your KPIs had to be, perfect, right? And so I remember billing the 100K over a rolling 3-month period, and not realizing I'd done that, and then being like, shit, I've actually just done this, and then being like, give me a promotion. And they were like, but your KPIs weren't good. And I was like, well, I've got until tomorrow. Just give me a sec. I'll just quickly get
I remember that. I mean, you did like an 18-hour day or something.
Let me just adjust that really quickly on the system. I had so much pressure on myself to be like, a $5,000 pay rise and this job title matters so much that I just kind of lost my way in terms of what I was doing right. So I really regret that. And I mean, do you want another one? Or
mate, if you want to throw them out, I love how you just throw your stories in. So mate, if there's any more.
Hopefully it doesn't offend them, but I definitely regret taking that role with 6 Degrees instead of going out by myself. So I think everything that was happening to me on a personal level at that point definitely impacted how much commitment I had to it.
It's fair, mate. It happens.
Yeah, there's that. I felt really bad about that with them. So
they're all good operators over there, and they'd get it, wouldn't they? Tell me about like relationships that you've built over time, because the thing I always used to remember with you is that clients just loved you and your candidates loved you, and I think it's because you're obviously a very personable guy. But is there any science behind your approach and how you do? Do you have consistent ways of checking in, or is it just I'm just me? Tell me a bit about that and how your relationships have evolved with these people over time.
I think for me, I've always enjoyed hearing people's stories and talking to them about who they are and what they do outside of their jobs. And accounting is not the most fun subject to talk about. So I think if you can get people out of that zone and talk about something they're actually passionate about and see something that lights up in them, and I enjoy that. I still do that. I went to a client meeting yesterday, and the question I asked my client was, what do you do outside of this? That was it. It was really simple. Yeah. And suddenly he started talking about restaurants that he likes, and that he's buying a new house and all this type of stuff. And the conversation just really improved because we were connecting properly. And he felt like, oh, wow, I can talk to Rav about all this stuff. Yeah. And then suddenly the next time you talk to them, you got all this info you can talk to them about. So it's a really cool thing to just be able to bond with people like that.
You're obviously in a niche market. Now you stayed there. Do you feel that ability to really niche down is helped, or do you think it's really your core skills of being a good person, talking about different things? And I can obviously talk about the specialization. Like, is it one or the other, or is it a bit of both?
It's probably a bit of both, I think. When I've spoken to, I do more exec level roles, it's harder to get a lot of info out of some of these people because they're just so, they do not want to warm up. They just want to stay professional. Whereas, when you're talking to someone who's earning 80 to 100K, they'll tell you everything. I don't think it's my market. I think I try to do that with everybody. sometimes it doesn't work.
Yep. Fair enough. Best piece of advice you've got in your recruitment career? Stick to ping pong.
Unfortunately, I have to say that it was from Joss, who was, I think when he started at Michael Page, he really, he got on my back a lot. But he was really good for me, I think.
He's a great operator, but he got on a lot of people's nerves.
Yes.
Joking.
Absolutely
Joss,
right.
if you're listening.
Yeah, he would always just tell me to stay consistent. And we sort of narrowed things down to what I would need to do in a day. And if I did all those things, I would just be consistent and I would build money. And no matter what happened, if I did that every single day, everything would work out. So running my own business, that really helped me because now every day I'm like, okay, I need to do these 3 things. If I do these 3 things, yes, I'll pick up work. May not feel it, but most likely I will. It's going to work out. If it just keeps rolling that way, I'll be okay.
I want to talk to you a little bit about leadership, right? Because I've obviously observed you going through your career and going to more senior roles. What was the biggest kind of change that you saw from, firstly, as like a consultant level to a leader? Tell me some of the things you kind of weren't ready for necessarily, and what did you learn in those leadership roles?
I probably wasn't ready for how much you would actually care about some people, and I think the first leadership role I had especially with Paige, I was like, well, I really like my team, and when some of them weren't doing well, and you get the tap on the shoulder from Rob to be like, what is this guy doing? You need to get rid of him or have that tough conversation.
Rob, he never said it like that.
Not like that, no.
Yeah.
But I really struggled with that because I think I humanised my team too much, and I probably went in too much and really liked them. So that was really, really tough initially when you had to have those difficult conversations with people and say, well, maybe this isn't for you.
So does that mean then you have to have not an emotional connection with your team to perform in those environments?
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you just have to keep it really professional. You can still connect with them in some ways, but you really have to have a line. Yeah. And I think what I did was make them understand that as well. Yeah. To be like, look, I like you as a human, but you need to know that when you're in here, we're not doing this. You're on the phone. This is your expectation. Yeah. Outside, good day or bad day, doesn't matter. We can still have a conversation. We still have a beer. It's all good. We don't need to talk about work. But in here, you need to put in your best effort.
Like when I was leading teams, I'd always look at, okay, this is the bit that they need to do. This is the bit that I need to do. And, I'd always look at capability uplift, training, things that I can work on. They need to make sure they're learning about their market, doing the activity, those kind of things. Do you have any ways of operating that you would like when leading teams, or was it just instinct? Because I kind of always felt like, instinctively you're a good leader of people. People follow you, so therefore you're a good leader. Or did you have a real approach that you took?
The only real approach I had was lead by example. And I could see my team, if I had an off day, a lot of the time they would have an off day too. We used to have this little basketball hoop when I went back to Page.
Could you reach it?
Back corner. Yeah, it was desk height.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
And we should have these basketball breaks. Me and my team. I had this really cool young team of guys. We just shoot hoops for a while sometimes. Yeah. And if I was too distracted or I was having a bad day, there was too much fun. Obviously, I was always guilty of that side, right? Yeah. And you can see that rubbed off on the team. Whereas when I was on the phone, leading by example, making calls, getting meetings, you could see them really lock in as well. So leading by example is probably the first part. Can't expect them to do stuff that I'm not doing. And the other part was just being accessible. You're not an idiot for asking this question. Just talk to me.
It's that kind of psychological safety kind of thing, like making you feel like they can ask those questions. Something I do remember about you, and I hope you don't mind me sharing, is you're always a big advocate for culture. I remember you and Damo Pilot were always leading the way on culture. And one time we did this BD day where you dressed up as Scary Spice. I don't know if you remember. And you were running around the office in the leopard print leotard. Right. Is that something you bring into your current business? That kind of where just focus on the culture. I know you talked about ping pong and stuff, but it was always a huge thing to keep the culture going. And it felt like it was just natural to you. Is it something you think about?
It's something I really miss, not wearing the leotard, but the culture side I really miss, having that environment to do that in. My business, because half of it's HR consulting.
So tell me about the future then. I want to kind of get back to, humanistics, what you're doing. Tell me a bit about your business. Like, how's that going? Because we were kind of touched on a bit of the HR consulting side, but tell me a bit about what the future looks like in 2026 and 2027 for you guys.
Well, we really focus on that kind of small to medium-sized business, and that's kind of where we can get both sides of the business involved. So we work with a lot of startups, and we put that kind of HR framework in for them, and then from there we build out the talent. And so that's where I come in and we'll say this is where we've got to recruit first and really help these owners build teams. And that stuff's really meaningful for me because I feel like I'm making a really good impact instead of just being transactional. So I enjoy that part a lot, and that's where we really, really focus on. And I think we'll continue doing that. I mean, there's so much happening with AI now. We've started building... James is going to kill me for saying it. But we've started building like an AI platform internally just to help us and also clients as well that will have both recruitment and HR capability. So that's kind of what the future holds at the moment is kind of pushing that.
AI is obviously everywhere. We're all talking about it. We're all using it in some capacity. How do you see AI in the recruitment side? Like, how do you use it at the moment?
To me, when AI came, because you know how much I hate admin, right? Would always get in trouble for not doing my admin. This is it. This is the ticket out of admin. I think the recruitment administration side it's going to have a huge impact on. I don't think fully AI recruitment tools are enough for businesses to rely on because you need context. So you can see a resume, you can see how they compare to, your PD, you can score a resume, all that stuff you can do through AI. But you need context, and that's where recruiters come in, that's where experts come in, because you need to have those detailed conversations with candidates. You need to understand the market really well. And so human connection or human touch on those things is that kind of last bit of finesse that's really important. I
was going to say exactly that. I've always maintained that whilst there's still interviews and people doing roles, there'll always be a place for recruitment. It won't get replaced in terms of how we do it. The human element of recruitment, is there anything that you think is really important? I know it's all important in the recruitment process, but like face-to-face interviews, or can it be done over Teams? Is there any things that you look at and go, we can't sacrifice that part with recruitment for it to...
I think you've got to know your candidates properly before you put them forward to a role. And I think the mistake we make in our market right now is because things are moving so quickly, like you pick up a role, a client will say, I need this now. And so you cut corners, and that's where things start to go wrong. You might work once or twice, and then you might get into this habit of going, well, I can just cut corners this time. And when something really matters, if you don't have the right connection with your candidate, if you haven't taken the time to meet them face to face, buy them a coffee, same thing goes for your client. If you haven't connected with them properly, I think you're not going to, be successful because you miss things. Whether it's a characteristic, maybe it's a personality trait, you need to have all those little, intricate details of your candidates and clients to properly match someone with their business.
Look, I think you're right. I was talking to someone the other week, and they were saying, thinking about launching an agency and saying that one of the things that I do is I make sure I meet everyone face to face. And I was there thinking, doesn't everyone do that? And maybe it's not the case so much anymore. Maybe there's a lot that's done virtually.
I see a lot of Teams interviews happening. Video screening now is a really big thing. So people will watch a video and they'll let their AI tool analyze the person's tone and the vocab that they use, and then make a decision based on that. Yeah. But I don't think you can... Look, yes, I think you should meet everyone. And the pure reason you should meet everyone is because of the feeling you get when you meet somebody. You can't do that on Teams. You can't do that anywhere else. So that's really important. You know how someone is based on the first few seconds, right? And being in their presence. It's really important.
Keep going back to it, but Michael Page days, when we'd go through the interview process, I always used to throw random questions in. We used to talk about it being mental agility, the ability to react and think on the spot. And I remember Josh Godbold always used to ask why are manhole covers round? And people would give different reasons. And one girl was like, so the Ninja Turtles can get in there. And he loved it. And I used to think, from there, I thought, well, I'm going to ask some crazy questions in there just to mix it up and see how people can actually respond. Do you do anything like that in your hiring nowadays?
I do when it's the right type of role. Like I wouldn't ask a financial accountant that question. But if I'm talking to an analyst or someone who builds financial models or anything like that, yeah, definitely. I got one question off Joss actually, which was how many golf balls can you fit in an 838 or A380 or something? Yeah. And you'd be like, tell me. And it'd be interesting to see how a candidate, thinks and what steps they take to giving you that answer. Another question I ask is, how do you tie your laces in the morning?
Really?
And people will be like, what? But it's a really interesting process, right? Because if you had to explain it, you wouldn't know.
Actually, now we're thinking about it. What's you got any really interesting kind of interviews you done, candidate interviews, like any really legendary ones that stand out? And the reason I remember one, and I won't say where it was or who it was, but as I was talking to them, an ant crawled out from their shirt up their face, and they just went and killed it. And I remember writing in my notes, highly dynamic candidate, can kill things on the spot. But any kind of weird stories or even weird placements or things that kind of stand out in your career that, is kind of fun.
I interviewed this candidate once, and I could smell that she had been drinking because her answers were great. She was doing really, really well. So I was like, maybe just a perfume or something, right? So I actually had a temp role for her, which I brought her in for in the morning, and I sent her to the client interview at like 1 o'clock that day. So I met her at like 8:30, 1 o'clock, she had an interview. It was really, really quick, okay? My client calls me at 1 o'clock. It's like, you need to come get your candidate.
Oh, no way.
And they're like, well, she's drunk. I was like,
Wow.
I was right.
Yeah.
She must have just had a big session.
Or she finished the candidate interview and just went to the pub for a bit.
Maybe.
Assuming she didn't get the role.
She did not.
No.
I had to carry her out and put her in a cab.
Happy days. Mate, great to catch up and reminisce.
Thanks, mate.
If anybody wants to find you, if clients want to find you, if candidates want to find you, how do they go about it?
Please, I'm on LinkedIn. Reach out.
Love it. Rav, pleasure, mate. As always, haven't seen you for a few years, but it felt like no time passed at all. Great to see you, buddy.
Thanks for having me, mate.